Though it wasn't pretty, USC found the way to win their first Big Ten road game after beating Purdue on Saturday, which was their first road win on the East Coast since 2012. Jaden Mayava led the way with 282 yards and a rushing touchdown. Jacoby Lane racked in 115 yards receiving on only 3 receptions. Bishop Fitzgerald led the defense with 2 picks, and Ryan Sierra led the team in scoring with 15 points. With that being said, let's break down the game by listing takeaways and going position by position to recap how they did. First, let's talk about some general comments about this team. The one thing I have to say to Lincoln Riley is that it doesn't matter that your team wears matching warm-up outfits and does drills in straight lines. When on the field, they are that undisciplined. While the refs were bad, and they did make some atrocious calls, the team was called for many blatant penalties and honestly should have been called for more. This was something that we saw last week as well, and I myself dismissed it as a one-time thing. But it looks like penalties are beginning to become more of an issue for this team. And if not for them, SC would have put Purdue away before the fourth quarter. Also, it seems like I say this every week, but Lincoln Riley can't call a proper 2-minute drill to save his life. Every week USC has had the ball with less than 2 minutes left in the second quarter, and every time the offense seemed to stall. One last comment. I don't think there's anything to this or anything to really analyze, but I noticed that every time SC kicked off and allowed a return, Purdue was able to score. And every time that USC kicked a touchback, Purdue didn't score. This trend also went back to last week, and again, I don't think there's anything to take away from it, but it's just an interesting note. Now let's move on to the offense and start with the quarterback. As though he didn't have a flashy game, Jaden Mayava had an overall good game on the stat sheet, completing 60% of his passes for a nice 10 yards per pass. I thought that throwing-wise, he looked comfortable and had a nice throw on that deep ball to Jacoby Lane. And outside of a couple throws near the end, he didn't really put the ball in harm's way. It's clear that Lincoln Riley and Luke Heward emphasized throwing the ball away and keeping the ball out of harm's way throughout the offseason, and over the past 3 weeks, we have really seen that from Mayava. On the ground, Jaden to start the game looked a little hesitant to run, but as the game went on, he started to keep the ball more often, and in space he was able to get a few crucial first downs and run for a score. Speaking of the run game, I thought that Purdue early really honed in on Waymond, and were always flocking to the ball when he touched it. And I think that's why when Mayava did pull, he was so successful. Speaking of Waymond, he had a slow start, but looked more explosive and powerful towards the end of the game, and was able to anchor the long fourth quarter drive to really put the game away. I think that drive showed improvement from Lincoln Riley, as he really leaned on the run game, and that's something that I felt he should have done more last year to really put games away. As for women's counterpart, Eli Sanders had a really good game as well, and it was a nice change of pace for Waymond. He was able to break through the defense early when Waymond struggled, and it's nice to have another dependable back when one isn't playing great. A receiver that stood out was Tanuk Hines, and he had the big catch on the third down to keep the chains going, and looked like the third best receiver out there on Saturday. Hines only finished with 23 yards, but he should have had more if Mayava saw him wide open downfield for an easy touchdown, and if he somehow reeled in that one-handed catch in the end zone. Lake McCree also had a great game, and continues to have a presence towards the middle of the field, while also playing a part in the 4th and short game. The offensive line also had a pretty good game in pass protection, and only let up 1 sack when Jaden was trying to find someone open on a Hail Mary. As for the run blocking, I do see room for improvement, as it seems they weren't really able to generate a lot of push early, especially Killian O'Connor. I think that a possible solution would be starting the bigger and highly regarded transfer John Ray Reed at center, but considering that he hasn't started as of yet, he might not have a full understanding of the playbook, or may just have the same issues as O'Connor. Moving on to the defense, they definitely didn't put up their best outing, and at times brought back some memories of 2023. The brightest part of the defense was the pass rush, as Purdue's quarterback was facing constant pressure, and there were a lot of red jerseys in the backfield. But it didn't matter, because he would find a receiver with no corner on him and convert for a first down. And that wasn't a one-time thing, because time after time again, Purdue was able to complete 14 passes of over 10 yards, and it seemed like no one on the USC secondary was able to keep their man in check. They were able to mask a lot of this up on the overall box score because of their 2 picks, and the turnovers bailing them out was why I compared them to the 2022 USC defense. One player that did stand out on the defense though was Eric Gentry. The linebacker recorded 8 solo tackles, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and 2 forced fumbles. It seemed like he was everywhere on the field, and should have had an interception as well on that double pass. He did end up missing some tackles though in run defense, and that's one aspect of the defense that both linebackers need to work on, Desmond Stevens included. I did think that Desmond looked improved from last week, and got better as the game went on, but he still isn't where we need him to be, or where his talent suggests he can be just yet. The MVP of the defense for me was between Eric Gentry and Bishop Fitzgerald. And because Fitzgerald held on to his interception and Gentry did not, I'll give the MVP to Bishop. On the day, Fitzgerald finished with 5 solo tackles and 2 picks, and prevented 2 scores with those interceptions. He did miss a tackle on a 3rd down that led to a big gain, but I think the great plays he makes far make up for those bad ones. Overall, I would say that the team played a decent game, and was far from the worst game we have seen from a Lincoln Riley team, but it will be interesting to see what will happen later on in the year. With that being said, that's all for this video, and I'll see you in the next one.